Hey, welcome. This is Lee Waller, and today I am working with Unreal Engine's motion design tools. I'm going to take a look at recreating this Jumbotron motion graphic. I'll recreate the entire scene in the tutorial, but at first I'm going to focus on media plate and how to add in these video clips to your scene. The function of the media plate is so that you can add video clips into your projects. There's a couple of ways of adding in a media plate. The first one is we can come over here to our motion design tools and we'll drop down to actors. You'll see media plate right there. I can just double click on that and it has added a media plate into the motion design outliner. From there you can take a look at the details of this. You can place the media plate, you can change the size of it. Right here under control is the controls for the video. A number of options here that you can work with depending on how you're wanting to use the media plate. Below that, you have geometry options. I'm going to stick with the plane for right now, but you can experiment with adding the video clip to a sphere or to custom objects. To actually add in the video that you want to use, you'll come right down here to the playlist. So right now, I do not have a playlist built, so I'm going to keep this at none, but I will go to first item in playlist. This is where we can select either the file that we want to add in, or if it's already been imported into Unreal Engine, you can select it as an asset. For this project, I'm going to add in two different types of video clips. The first one's just going to be an H.264 that's wrapped in an MP4, and then the other one will be a PNG sequence. The first one right now, I'm just going to leave it at file, so that I can go search for that file on my computer and add it in. So with file selected, I'm going to go right down here to the three dots, click on that. It's going to open up my Explorer, and then I'm going to navigate. I have them on my desktop. So right here is the highlights video clip that I want to add in. You'll see that it's a .mp4. So I'm just going to select it. It has brought it in, but what I need to do at this point is I need to actually load that in. So I'm going to click right here to open up that current media. And now you'll see that it has added that clip in. So at this point, you can start working with the media plate very quickly, very easily. It has selected an aspect ratio based on the clip that I placed in there, which is a 1920 by 1080, 16 by 9 aspect ratio. You can see all of those options right here. At this point, I'm going to start adjusting things for the entire motion graphic. So I'm going to come back up here to scale. I'm going to make sure that this is locked, and then I'm going to adjust this to 4.4 on the scale. I'm going to set this to be my first media plate. We can take a look at the original animation, and I have the Jumbotron built with 4 sides. So this will be the front side. All of the media plates that I'm going to add in will be scaled up to 4.4, but I'm going to change their position. So on location for this one, I'm going to set the X value to a -265. That brings it a lot closer to us. And then I'm going to rotate this on the Y value to 13. And now we can add in our second media plate. I'm going to label this media plate 1, and I'm going to hide that real quick. There are a couple of other ways that you can add in media plates. So I'm going to go to the content drawer real quick. And under content right there, I'm just going to add in a new folder. I'm going to right click right there, go up to new folder, and I will add, and I'll label this videos. And I'm going to double click on that folder and import that same video in. Double click on that and it brings it in. I'm going to select it and just hit Control S just to save that. And you'll see now that it is the file media source. I can grab this and drag it into the scene, and it knows immediately that I want it to be a media plate. So it sets it up, and it's labeled it highlights based on the name of the video file. So I'm going to change that out real quick so I can keep up with the different media plates. Then we can jump down here into the details. We can load that. I'm going to go ahead and increase the size of that, the scale up to the 4.4 to match the others. I'm going to reset its position right there. Just going to click this reset button, and I'm going to set this into a new location. Remember that the Jumbotron that I'm building has 4 sides to it. So I'm going to make this another side of it. So for the location on this one, I'm going to set the X value to 265. And then I will go ahead and slant this like we're going to do with all of the others. Set that to 13. And then I'm going to rotate it on the Z-axis 180 degrees. And that will be the back side of the Jumbotron. So that we can gain a little control over this and take a different look at it, I'm going to go ahead and begin to place these in a null object. So I selected both of them, then came up here and clicked the null object button. That places both of those media plates inside that null object. With both of them in the null object, I can come down here and I can rotate them so that we can begin to see the Jumbotron take shape. I'll add in our third media plate, and with that one, I'm going to actually bring in another video clip. So I'll go back up here to media plate, click on it twice. That's been added in. There's that media plate. I'm going to go ahead and relabel it to media plate 3. And then I'm going to drop it also into that null object. And let me label that null object as Jumbotron. So for this third media plate, I'm actually going to import an image sequence, a PNG image sequence. I'm going to go to the content drawer, go into my videos folder, and I'm going to right click to import that. And I'll go up to media and then image media source. I'm going to double click on that. And it's going to open up this dialog box right here. Now I'm going to navigate to the path where the sequence is. I'm going to click right here on the 3 little dots, and on my desktop, I have that PNG image sequence. I'm going to select the first image in that sequence. You'll see that it starts off at 0. I'm going to click open, and it loads that. And now I'm going to hit open right here, and it loads the video. I'm going to close this out. And again, we'll see in the content drawer, I'm going to select that and save it, Control S. You'll see that I have that image sequence right there. And I'll jump back now to my media plate. And I'm going to scroll right down here and you'll see asset. And I can select that asset and I'll open up the browser and there is that image sequence. I'll select it. And again, we can load that. And we're really not seeing that right now because it's hidden behind the other media plates. So I'll just go down here, hide that, and there is that video. I'll make the adjustments now to place this in the Jumbotron where we want it. So for location, we'll set off at 0, and then on Y, we'll set this to 265. And I'll rotate that by 13 degrees on the Y-axis, and then I'm going to rotate it on the Z-axis 270 degrees. And now I'll scale this up to 4.4, just like our other media plates are, and bring back everything into view. And the reason we're not seeing the others is because I need to reload those. So I'll go to both of those plates, select them, and hit Open Current Media button right there. And now we'll see all 3 of those media plates when we go to the Jumbotron and we rotate this around. The reason I added in a different video for media plate 3 is that I've added in the graphics and I've timed them for my animation. Now, to create both of these videos, I did edit them in Premiere Pro. So the content for media plate 3, I did create a new level in Unreal Engine and I added that footage in and then created the graphics. In another tutorial, I'll show you how I created these graphics here. So for media plate 4, I'm going to set my Jumbotron back to its original position. And now for media plate 4, I'll simply duplicate media plate 2, select it and Control D, and I'll rename that so that things do not get confusing. The location and rotation values for media plate 4 are as follows. For location on the X-axis, that needs to be 0. On the Y location, a negative 265. On the Z-axis, 0. And then on rotation, X needs to be 0, Y needs to be 13, and Z needs to be 90. With our 4 media plates added in and the basics of the Jumbotron built, the first thing I want to do is go to the camera here, and I'm going to need to unlock it because I want to make some changes to it. And I'm going to scroll down, and on my lens settings, I'm going to go from universal zoom to a 30mm prime. And I'm going to leave the rest of the settings as they are. And now what I'll do is I'm going to pull the camera out a bit so that we can see our scene just a little bit better. And we can continue working. We'll come back to this and make some adjustments later. I'll go ahead and lock it back. So now we'll start building the frame for the Jumbotron. This will be a little bit easier to do than adding the media plates in because we're going to use a cloner. So I'm going to go over here to the tools. I'm going to select actors and I'll go to cloner and double click that in. Definitely going to need to make some adjustments to this. You'll see the cloner over here in our motion design outliner. I'm going to open that up. The cloner is made up of the default cube right now. We're not going to use that, so I'm going to select it and delete it. Click yes right there. And then I'll go back up to our 2D shapes and I'm going to add in a rectangle. So I'll just double click right there. There's my rectangle. I'm going to go ahead and make that a child of the cloner. So I'll grab the rectangle and drop it right on top of the cloner. And now the rectangle is the object that is being cloned. We're going to make some adjustments to the cloner. So let's select it and reset everything right here on location. And I'm going to drop down to the layout, and the layout name right there, we're going to change that from grid to circle. And let me hide this front media plate just so that we can see this a little bit better. You'll see there's our cloner object, and now it's wrapping 9 of those rectangles around a circle. We only need 4, so down here in the count, we'll change that from 9 to 4. And on the radius, we're going to bring that up to 250. And now we'll make some changes to the rectangle. Select the rectangle, and we're going to drop down to the shape here for mesh size. We're going to deconstrain these, so we're going to click on the X and Y, set that to free so that these two numbers are not constrained together. And the mesh size will need to be 421 by 237. We need to angle those, so we'll jump back up here to rotation. And on the Y-axis, we'll set that to -13. And we're going to use some modifiers to help create the shape we need. So again, with that rectangle selected, let's go up to our operator stack right here, this tab here, and select it. If for some reason you don't have that tab, come over here to the far left. You'll see the operator stack button right there. Just click it. And now in the operator stack, we're going to add a few modifiers. So on Add Modifier, we'll drop down to Outline first, select it, and you'll see that it is outlining that shape. And now we want to add another modifier. So let's jump back up here to Add Modifiers, and we're going to add Extrude. I'm going to bring down my Details tab so I can see those modifiers that we're adding. You'll see the outline right there and the extrude right there. And on that extrusion depth, let's just set that to 20. And we're going to add one more modifier. So let's go back up to Add Modifiers, and we'll drop down to Bevel. And we can scroll to that and set it at an inset of 3. And on the iterations, also 3. I'm going to go back to the Motion Design Outliner, and I'm going to bring that media plate back in so that we can see it. And I want to make sure that this cloner is also part of the Jumbotron. So when we move it, it'll all be together. So let's grab that cloner and just bring it down to the Jumbotron. When it's highlighted just like that, we can drop it. And now it is a child of the Jumbotron null. And we can label this cloner. And I like to, on these, keep the word cloner as part of the name. So I'm going to add in frame underscore cloner. And we can close that up for right now. And so again, back in our Jumbotron, if we rotate that around, you'll see that all of that stays together. You'll notice that we're seeing the back of the video here on these. And so I want to hide that. And so an easy way of doing that is I'll go to the frame cloner and duplicate it, Control D. And then I'll jump into the rectangle for that one, go to the operator stack, and I'm just going to get rid of all of the modifiers. To get rid of them, I'm just going to click on the trash can next to each modifier. Now you'll see that it's hiding the video, but we need to make a little bit of adjustment on the radius right there. So back into our motion designer, go to that cloner, and I'm going to bring the details up so I can see this. And I'll just push that radius out just a little bit, maybe to 254. That should work. That way it'll close up and hide all of the video. So let's take a look at that. I'll go back to the Jumbotron and just spin around to take a look and see if we're seeing anything. All right, that looks pretty good. This will probably be a good time to go up and hit File and Save All. So the materials for this, I'm going to get off of Quixel Bridge. If you've not done this before, it's easy enough to do. We're going to go up here to the Add button right here, open it up and go to Quixel Bridge. It's going to open up, and if you've not logged in recently, it's going to ask you to log in. So I've downloaded some materials from Quixel Bridge to use in this project. I'll list them here, and you can go and grab those materials if you'd like to. If you're not familiar with Quixel Bridge, you can come up here to the plus button, click on it, and open up Quixel Bridge. It will ask you to log in. Use your same login information as you did with Unreal Engine, and then you can search up here for the materials you're looking for. After you've found one, select it, download it, and then add it to the project. Once it's in the project, you can go to your content drawer, and you'll see under Content, Megascans, and then the surfaces. And so here are the materials that I've downloaded for this. I'm going to go ahead and add a material to the frame and to the backside of the frame. So I'm going to come over here to the Motion Design Outliner, and I'm going to go to the frame cloner there, select that rectangle. Then I'll drop down here to Material Type, and where it says Simple, I'm going to select that, and I'm going to go to Asset. And then I will open up this bar right here and search for the material I'm looking for. I'm going to add this painted gun metal. So select it, and it adds it to those frames. And then I'll do the same for the back of the frame. And I'll open this up, select that rectangle, go to Simple, select Asset, and then search for that again. Just going to take a look at that real quick and rotate around. Everything's looking really good. In the original, I added a large cube in the center just to add some dynamics to this. We'll move over here to 3D shapes, and we're going to add a cube in. Just double click on that. And with that cube selected, we'll reset the location. Just click that button right there, and it centers that cube right in the middle. We'll make a few adjustments just so we can see this. I'm going to hide that front media plate again. There's our cube. And on the location, I'm going to leave it at 0, 0, but I'm just going to bump this up just a little bit to 3. And then I'm going to bring the scale up. I'm going to unlock this, and I'm going to bring the scale up to 4.525, 4.525, and then 2.5. I'm going to make one more adjustment to this. I'm going to go down to the shape for this, and I'll go to the bevel size, and I'm going to bring that bevel up to 5. That will round this object. And before I do anything else, I do need to make this a child of the Jumbotron. So I'm going to grab it, drop it in to the Jumbotron right there. And so again, whenever we rotate this, it'll all be together. So let me rotate this and take a look at it. And there's our object. So I want to add a material to this. So I'm going to go to the primary material right here, change it from Simple to Asset, and then we will look up that material that we want, and it's this rusty metal. There it is right there. Select it and add it. You'll notice that it is added to only one side of it. So what we'll need to do is use single material right there, and it wraps it all around the entire cube. I'm going to go back to my Jumbotron and just reset my rotation, and I'll bring that first media plate back in. So taking a look at that original animation now, I want to add in the back wall. To do that, we're going to use a cloner. And so I'll go over here to my actors, and I'll go to cloner and double click on that, drop that in, and let me reset, make sure that everything is reset on that. Select it and reset location. My cloner is still back there, and we're going to make some adjustments to it. So again, I'll hide this media plate 1 just so we can see this a little bit better. And I'll hide that cube real quick. With my cloner selected, I'm going to drop down into the details, and right here under layout, we'll change this from grid to cylinder. I'm going to leave its object as the default cube, and then I'll make some adjustments to the base count. We'll bring that base count up to 250, the height count up to 50, the height, we're going to bring this way up to 5,700, and then the radius out to 5,000. Now to create the motion that we want in this, we're going to add an effector. So again, with that cloner selected, we can go right here to spawn linked effector, and that will add the effector in and make sure that it is attached to that cloner. Then we can go to the effector, and we're going to make some adjustments to it. If you've not worked with cloners and effectors, I have another video tutorial that you can watch. It's linked down in the description, or you can click right up above. With the effector selected, we'll take a look at the details. Let's go down here to type. We'll change that from sphere to unbound. And the mode, we're going to change it from default to noise. And then we're going to make some adjustments in the noise field here. On the Y value in the rotation, we'll set that to 15. On scale, we'll leave all of that to 1. On pan, we'll set this first one to 2, the second one to 2, and then the last one to 3. And then on the frequency, we'll set that to 1. It's difficult to see right now what is going on because the way this is going to work, we're going to add a reflective material to it, and then the lighting will do the rest. To add that material, we'll need to go back to our cloner, go to the default cube, and that's where we're going to add this material in. So here in materials, just like we did before, we'll search for that material, and it is the hot blued steel. I'm going to select this, add it, and you'll see now, of course, that material is showing up. And what lighting we do have in there, you're beginning to see that motion that is being created by that effector. I'm going to label this effector back wall. And we'll close that up. And then in my Jumbotron, I'm going to go ahead and bring back the cube and also bring back that other media plate. And then I'll just close this up so we can clean some things up. We're going to start adding our lighting in. To light this scene, I'm using only 5-point lights, and we'll move them around. So we'll start off. Let's go over here to our tools, and we'll drop down to lights. And I'm just going to double click on that point light, and we'll make some adjustments to this first one. Select it, and let's change this to movable. And I'm going to reset that location, and then on the Z axis, I'm going to set that to 217. So we're bringing that up. You'll see that we start getting some highlights and some lighting from this. I'm going to jump down into intensity, and actually on the units, I'm going to change that from unitless to EV, and then I'm going to bring that intensity up to 10. One more adjustment is on the attenuation radius. I'm going to bring that up to 6,800. For the second one, I'll just duplicate the first. So I'll select it and hit Control D and select that point light 2. Make some adjustments on the location. So we'll go down here to the location, and on the Z axis, we'll set that to -495. And so we can see how these lights are adding in. I'm going to jump out of the camera, and you'll see our first point light is right there, and our second point light is down here. And I'll just stay in this view right now to add in the other lights. So I'll duplicate point light 2, select it, and Control D, and make a few adjustments to its location. I'm going to leave X at 0, and on Y, I'm going to set this to a -660. And then I'm going to bring it up and set that to a -75 right there. And now I'm going to duplicate point light 3, Control D, and we'll make some adjustments to number 4 right there. On the location, I'm going to change the Y axis to 710. That takes it over to the other side. We'll leave it at a -75. And then we're going to add in one more final light. So I'm going to select point light right there, duplicate it, Control D, and relocate it. I'm going to set the X value at negative 840. Tab over, and we're going to set that to 0. And I'm going to set the Z at a negative 16. I'm going to bring that attenuation down on that front light there to about 735. Now, all of this lighting came into play by me just working with it and adjusting it to get it the way I want it. I'm going to jump back into my camera and take a look. A little bit more that I need to do on the lighting is I need to go down into the default scene here in the Motion Design Outliner. Open that up, and I'm going to get rid of, first I'll turn these off just to show you. I'm going to get rid of these two lights right here. So I'm going to select them and delete both of them. Taking a look at the original, we now have this lower set of rings that I want to create. To create those rings, I'm going to use 2D shapes. And so I'm going to go into the 2D shape tab there, select the ellipse. I'm going to add the first one in, just double click on that. There's our first ellipse. Let's reset that location right there so that we can see this a little bit better. I'm going to hide the entire Jumbotron. I'm going to scroll to that Jumbotron null right there and just click the eyeball so that we can hide it. And so there is that first ellipse on the location on the Z axis. I'm going to set that to a negative 20. And then I'm going to rotate this on the Y axis 90 degrees. And we'll drop down to the mesh size for this. And we'll bring this up to 475. I want to increase the sides all the way to 128, and we'll leave everything else there. To add depth to this, we're going to add some modifiers to it. So again, with this selected, that ellipse right there selected, we'll go to the operator stack, open it up, and we're going to add some modifiers. The first modifier will be the outline. Select it. And I'm going to open this up so we can take a look at it. I'm going to leave the mode at outset, and the distance I'm going to set to 20. We're going to add an extrude modifier to it now. So go back into add modifiers and extrude and bring this down just a little bit. And we're going to set the depth to 40. I'm going to bring my details back up so I can see this. We need to add the material to it now. So we'll scroll up, look at the material type. And we're going to use, again, one of those materials we've already downloaded. It'll be the hot blued steel also. So we can click on simple right there, go to asset, and then we'll search that and select that material. To create the top and bottom of this, I'm going to add in another ellipse. So I'll go up here and just double click on that. We're going to reset the position of that one. We'll change the location on the Z axis to 20. And we'll again rotate that 90 degrees. On the Y axis, we'll bring the mesh size back up to 475 and change this to 128. And then we're going to add modifiers to this one. With our operator stack selected there, we can go to modifiers, and we want to start off with the outline again. We'll make some adjustments to it. Keep it at outset, but bring our distance up to 24. And then we're going to add an extrude. Take a look at the extrude properties. We're going to bring this down to 6. And then the last modifier will be bevel. And we'll set these two properties to 2. We'll jump back into the Motion Design Outliner. There is our ellipse 2 that we're working on as far as the top goes right now. And I'm going to go into its details and look for the material. The material that I want to add on this, again, is an asset that we already have. So I'm going to open this up and I'm going to look for that gun material. There's that painted gun metal. I'm going to select it. And since we've created that, all we need to do is duplicate it and move it into place for the bottom of this. So select it, Control D. And make sure that that ellipse 3 is selected. And on the location properties, we're going to set the Z axis right here to a negative 22. So that we can keep all 3 of these together, we can select them. And I'm just doing a shift select right there. And then I'm going to hit the null object right there. It wraps those 3 into a null object. And I'll collapse that and relabel this to rings. And now I'll bring back our Jumbotron so that we can position this. Go back to the rings and position, and then I'll start bringing this down, and we'll just drop it down somewhere about right there. So now I want to add our text in here, just that word basketball that's rotating around. To do that, let me first make an adjustment to the scene so that we can see this a little bit better. I'm going to go into the default scene. I'm going to unlock my camera, and I'll just position this just a little bit better so we can see it. Then I'll just lock that back for right now. We will animate that camera a little bit later. To animate this text, I will need a text actor. So over here in my tools panel, I'll select the actors. I'll go to text actor. So there's my text actor. I'll just hide the Jumbotron. Let me find it. Close it out for right now. There's our text actor. I'm going to select it right there, and we're going to drop down and reset the position of that and center align it. I'm going to change the font here. So I'm going to click on Roboto there, and I think I want to go with Impact. And I have Impact right there. Select it, and I need to type in the word basketball right there. I typed it in all uppercase, but just in case you didn't, you can enforce uppercase right there. And now what I want to do is I want to position this right here in front of the ring so that we can get an idea of the size that we want it to be. So I'll start working with my position properties to bring that down, and then I'll bring it out forward until I get it in place that I can begin to check the size of it. And so right there looks good, and I'll start working with the scale. I'm going to make sure that that is locked, and then I can bring the scale down. I'll set that at 0.55. That looks like that'll work good. And then I'll just reset the position. I just wanted to make sure I got that size right before we moved forward. I want to drop down now to the geometry for this, and let's extrude that by 5, and then maybe set the bevel to 1. And one last thing, we will set the kerning right here to 1. And that just gives us some more space between the letters. To create the effect we want, we're going to need to use a cloner. The cloner will duplicate the word and then also allow us to wrap it around a circle. One issue that I've run into is it doesn't work well with this text actor, so we're going to need to make each one of these letters a static mesh. To do that, we're going to need to convert it. So with that selected, let's go up here to motion design mode. We're going to click on that drop-down menu, and we're going to go into modeling mode. From modeling mode, we're going to go into transform right here. Make sure that text actor is selected. We're going to go to convert, and you see static mesh right there. Make sure that's selected. And then right down here, we're going to convert and click on accept. Now it has taken each one of those letters and converted it into its own static mesh. The problem is it's kind of mixed it all up. So we're going to have to take a little bit of time to find out which letter is which and label it. I'm just going to begin to select one, and we can kind of take a look at it right here. That appears to be a B. You'll also see that it's on that first B. So I'm going to go ahead and relabel that. I'll label that one B1, and then I'll just go through the rest of the letters and relabel them. All right, so I have those all labeled. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to need a cloner to create the effect. So I'm going to jump back into our motion design mode there, go into actors, and double click the cloner. I want to reset the position for this cloner. Make sure you select the cloner, and we're going to need to reset the position for it. Reset right there. And we'll get rid of that default cube right there, select it and delete it. And now what we need to do is make each one of these letters a child of the cloner. So let me expand this, and I'm just going to select the first one right there and then go to the top and hold down Shift and select the rest of them. And then I'll just drag those into the cloner right there. They are now a child of the cloner, and you'll see that they're in a grid shape. So selecting our cloner, we'll go down into the properties for it, and you'll see grid right there. And we want to change that from grid to circle. So now they're wrapping around that circle. And let's bump this up to 50 for right now on the count, because the word basketball is made up of 10 letters. That means we have now 5 instances of the word basketball. To add some separation to this, I'm just going to click the word label right there. I'm going to click that tab right there for label so that nothing is selected. And I'm going to add an empty null in. And then I'm going to grab that empty null and drag it into the cloner, make it a child. And what that is going to do is add a space in there between each word. So we will need to adjust again the number, the count on our cloner to 55. And so now everything will be spaced correctly. You can see that our word is out of order, and we also need to flip all of the letters so that they're facing outward. To do that real quick, let's again select all of the letters. And we'll go down to the rotation properties, and we'll set the Z-axis to 180. So now they're all facing outward. And at this point, we'll just need to go in and rearrange our letters. I'm going to start with basketball, B1. I'm going to bring that down to the bottom. Now make sure you don't kick it out of the stack. You can always place it back in, but I'm going to bring it down to the bottom, drop right there. And so my B is in the correct position, and from there, I'll just begin to grab the other letters and set them in place. So now we have the word correctly spelled and placed on the ring. Select the cloner, and we can now begin to put it in place. Start to shift it down on the Z-axis, and then we're going to need to bring the radius out. So maybe somewhere around 259 on the radius right there. And then I need to work on my position just a little bit, bring that up. And there we have it. Let's see what happens now when we use the angle start to rotate this around. Okay, and it appears to be rotating like we want it to. And I'm just going to set that back to 0, but that's the way we will animate it in just a few minutes. So now that we have that in place, I'm going to bring back the Jumbotron. Let me close a few things up so we can see this and bring my details down. There's my Jumbotron. We'll add that in, and I'll make an adjustment on the camera so I can see this a little bit better. So now I'm going to start working on the animation, and really, other than the text, the only other animation that's going on is the camera. So I'm going to go over here to my motion design outliner, and I'm going to grab that camera right there and drag it into our sequence. I'm going to set this sequence to 24 frames per second. The reason I'm changing that now is because my original footage was set at 24 frames per second. So I want to make sure that matches. So with that camera in the sequencer, I'm now going to begin to adjust its settings. And I'll pull out a little bit here and then begin to bring it into place. And looking at that, I do want to make an adjustment to my back wall. So I'm going to select it, and I'm going to bring that up quite a bit on the Z-axis. Now with that camera in place, I'm going to make a few adjustments to my sequencer settings. I'm going to go right here on keyframes and key all, and then I'm going to set this to auto key. And so that way, whenever I move and make an adjustment to the camera, it is going to go ahead and set a keyframe for me. Now, I've not set a keyframe at this point, so I need to set keyframes for the transform controls of the camera. So to do that, so that I set them on all location, rotation, and scale, I'm just going to click right here, and that'll make sure I cover everything. And so from here on out, whenever I make an adjustment, it will add those keyframes in for me. I did set the length of this for a 20-second animation, so Right here in the middle is where I'm going to stop this camera move. And that should time out with our footage. And so using my keyboard and mouse, I'm going to start adjusting my next camera move. I am navigating the camera at this point, and basically I'm just using the left and right mouse buttons on the mouse and moving the camera in place where I want it. And so that should have set my second keyframe for me. So I'm going to jump back to the beginning and hit play. And you can see there that we're losing the screens a little bit, so I'm going to adjust that in just a moment. Okay, that works right now. So what I'm going to do is find probably somewhere right in there, and what I'll do is, again, move this camera, adjust it so that we kind of keep the screens in place. And let me show you the keyframes there. They're being set right there. And I'll go back now to the beginning of the timeline, hit play. And so we should keep the screens pretty much in. Now what we need to do is add our two media plates into the sequencer so that they play from the beginning to the end. So I'm going to just scroll this up, give us a little bit of room so that we can see this. And I'll head to the Jumbotron and look for those media plates. The media plate that I'm going to need is media plate 1 right there, and media plate, is it 2 or 3? Going to need media plate 1 and media plate 3. So I'll go ahead and grab media plate 1, just bring it and drop it. It's going to ask us this right here. We want to say yes. We do want the autoplay to be turned off. And that way, it'll start playing from the beginning of the sequence, just to show you that. So once we hit play on the sequence, it starts playing that clip. It'll do the same for the media plate 3. So let me grab media plate 3, bring it in, same thing, we'll hit yes on that. And so now both of those media plates are in there. We can go back to the beginning, hit the play button. And we see the footage playing on both screens, and then on media plate 3 right there on the right side, it'll go to the graphic. And media plate 1 will continue to play out. And the last thing we want to animate is the word basketball up there. To do that, I will jump up here to my cloner, and I'm going to add in that angle start right there. To do that, I'm going to go right here to the keyframe button, and let me make sure that my timeline indicator is at the very beginning of the timeline, and go to that angle start, add in that keyframe button right there. It sets the keyframe at the beginning, and so what I want to do is animate this throughout the entire time. So I will jump to the end, use this to the end button right there. That'll jump me to the end of the sequence, and I'll add in another keyframe, and I'm just going to type in 1 right there. I want to change the interpolation of these two keyframes because what they're doing right now on their velocity is starting from 0, ramping up, and then maintaining a velocity and then ramping back down. I want it to maintain a constant velocity all the way across. So with both of them selected, I'm going to right click, go to linear, and set them to linear. So now they should have a constant speed throughout. I hope this has been helpful. For more on Unreal Engine's motion design tools, hit the like and subscribe button.